So I came across an article by the Mountain States Legal Foundation. The headline is Wyoming Ranchers and Farmers Now Endangered, Not the Grizzly. And I was about to say much to my surprise, not to my surprise, the Pacific Legal Foundation was involved in this case, so it's always interesting to talk to them whenever I get a chance, and it has been a while. So Cody is on the phone with me right now. Cody, I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name.
Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning, Glenn. Thanks for having me on.
How do I pronounce your last name? I'm curious.
It's Wisniewski.
Yes, I'm glad I didn't try. Because phonetically, I was about to say something else, and I thought, I'm not even going to, I'll just let you do it. So the article that I was reading here, again, Wyoming ranchers and farmers are now endangered, not the grizzly. And the story goes on to talk about how we have people with a profitable business. I mean, they got sheep. Hey, there's even llamas out here. There's cattle, of course. And we all would love to see nature thrive. I mean, bears, and we just had a story on our news top of the hour about the wolf population. I'd love to see nature thrive, but I guess we reach a point where we're just sort of running into each other and farmers, ranchers are losing out. What's happening out there?
Absolutely, Glenn. And just one quick point of clarification. I'm actually with Mountain States Legal
You are
Foundation.
with Mountain. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So what's happening is the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem grizzly bear has been protected since the 70s. And it's truly a success story of the ESA in that the population has recovered, it's been able to expand its boundaries. But exactly like you're talking about, when that happens, that means that there's more and more bears coming into conflict with people. And a lot of those people are ranchers and farmers who live on the edges of these management zones or work in the middle of these management zones. So our clients have been ranching in the area for over a century. I mean, both of them got there in the region around the early 1900s and have just seen the grizzly population rise and rise and rise to a point where it's difficult for them to even maintain their operations. One of our clients had a shepherd that was mauled by a female grizzly bear. We're all for, conserving the species and allowing for nature to exist there, but at some point we need to, when the bear has expanded and when the bear has reached its population limits, we need to return management to the states so that people who live and work in Wyoming can go to the state and go to their local officials and address some of these concerns.
Okay, so in some cases, I've read a few stories on air here where they have a 3 strikes you're out proposal for the bear. So in other words, some Wyoming state officials, BLM might come along for that matter, and go ahead and pick up the bear, trap it, right, and bring it back out into the mountains, back into some area where, hey, we could probably use a bear up there. But if the bear continues to wander back 3 times, then they come to the conclusion that the bear is just not going to learn. We don't want you here, and that's where they finally put the bear down. That's one method I've seen. Are some of these farmers and ranchers asking that maybe they can just kill on sight what comes into their area?
No, not at all. And one of our clients specifically, Mr. Price, was a Wyoming Game and Fish Department official previously and has advocated greatly for moving bears, for the translocation of bears. And Wyoming's been able to be successful with that when they're allowed to do so. And all they're asking for is to have somebody in their backyard, a local person, their local state official, that when there's a conflict, when there's an issue, that they can go to them and they can get an answer and they can get a resolution. Obviously, they don't have any interest in killing the bears. They're ranchers out there trying to make a living, trying to support their families, just trying to live the American dream in that sense. And without having somebody local to go through, they have to go through the federal government in Washington, D.C., and all untold amounts of red tape. They're afraid of federal prosecution because of the provisions of the Endangered Species Act. If they so much as scare a bear, I mean, they can go to jail and face fines for that. So,
okay. So I was wondering where the conflict came in and how does this wind up in court? Because what you're saying sounds reasonable. They're not necessarily interested in just killing on sight. They'd like relocation. Why does this wind up in court?
So a couple of ways. The reason why it's in court right now is because the federal government, Fish and Wildlife, has been studying this population of grizzly bear since it was listed, but intensively for about 20 years now, and has determined that the grizzly bear has recovered, it's met all of its population goals, and it fills the area, its critical habitat. It's almost at what they consider to be carrying capacity, meaning that they can't really have any more bears out there. So as a conclusion of all of that science, Fish and Wildlife decided to delist the bear, to consider the greater Yellowstone ecosystem grizzly bear no longer to be threatened or endangered, which then would return it to state-level management. And as soon as the Fish and Wildlife Service decided that, then immediately a number of environmental organizations and tribes sued to try to invalidate Fish and Wildlife's decision and to get the bear back on the endangered species list.
How do we get something on the list? Because I've been wondering, okay, let's say we need a certain number of bears. When we reach that number of bears, they're no longer endangered. I mean, isn't that, it should be as simple as that, right? I mean, they're just going to pick a number out of thin air. In Wyoming, we need to have 100 bears. So we reach 100 bears. We're okay now. But it doesn't seem to be that simple with the environmentalists.
No, and it should be. There are other factors that Fish and Wildlife should be considering, but if you've managed to successfully restore a population, and if it meets all of its measurable metrics that you've set, you would think that you should just be able to delist the species and then and again, we're not talking about just the Wild West on the bear all of a sudden. I mean, It will still be subject to state protections.
Okay, so wait. So in other words, delisting does not automatically mean hunting.
No.
Okay.
Delisting means it's no longer federally protected under the Endangered Species Act.
Okay.
And the Endangered Species Act has pretty severe penalties for what they call a take. And a take can include something like killing a bear, but could also include injuring or harassing in any way. And those punishments are very severe. And as a result, people are very afraid of accidentally even violating those and being forced to contend with the federal government and the heavy hand of federal prosecutors.
Okay, so go ahead.
But delisting from the federal list, it's still going to be protected at the state level. The bear would still be protected in Greater Yellowstone Ecosystem National Park. Those protections are going to remain and stay. So it's not just like some sort of open season on the bear. Absolutely not. It turns it over to state-level management to manage the population that exists in their backyard.
Okay, so in this case, from the Mountain States Legal Foundation, can I ask, as much as you can tell me, who's involved in the case and where are we at in the case in this court process, which I know can be lengthy?
Absolutely. I would love to tell you everybody who is involved, but unfortunately it would take the rest of our time on air today.
Okay.
Because there are 6 different plaintiff groups, the federal government, and 6 different defendant intervener groups, of which Mountain States is one. But it's a number of environmental organizations, tribes, and tribal members that sued the federal government to put the bear back on the list. And then ranchers and farmers, the states of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana are all involved, as well as some other non-governmental organizations. So those are all the parties to it. As you can imagine, there's a lot of people that are trying to weigh in and are weighing in with the court.
Okay. And about how far along do you think you are on the process? I know it can be kind of lengthy in court, but where are we at?
Yeah, we're moving pretty quickly along. So right now we are at the circuit court level. So the district court in Montana issued its ruling last year, which decided to invalidate the federal government's rule, returning the bear back to the endangered species list and requiring the federal government to do even more studies on top of the 20 years of research that they've done. So we have appealed that decision, and we're at the circuit court stage now. Essentially, briefing has just about concluded, meaning that the next step will be oral argument before the Ninth Circuit.
Okay. I hope we have exchanged information. If not, I'll make sure that we do. Because as this process continues, Cody, I'd like to have you on from time to time to keep us abreast of where we're at with the case, and especially when we finally come to a resolution, to have you on the program to explain to everybody what the final result is.
Absolutely. More than happy to, and we appreciate you having us on.
Okay. Thank you, Cody. I do appreciate it. Cody from the Mountain States Legal Foundation. This will be a bit of a process, but something we ought to watch step by step all the way through. Look for the articles on the Wake Up Wyoming website, wakeupwyo.com, or download the app for free, Wake Up Wyoming.